I want to talk about partner intelligence, and you talk about that there are 6 elements to partner intelligence. Can you highlight for us what those are and kind of briefly walk us through each one of those? I think they'll give us some great conversation there.
Yeah, for sure. So partnering intelligence, I'll shorthand PQ. So, because for me, it's like the sort of the lesser known cousin of EQ. People know IQ, people know EQ, emotional intelligence. PQ very much is part of that more emotional intelligent types thing. But it's not something that I made up. It's not something that I thought one afternoon thought, let's invent a new type of intelligence. It very much came out of research at this sort of end of the 80s, early 90s. A guy called Steve Dent who looked at those more formal business alliances, formal business partnerships, and found that the people, because one of his phrases is organizations don't partner, people do. Yeah, the ones which were most successful is because the people involved in it had these certain traits, had these certain characteristics. And so he did a lot of work on this and sort of had these kind of research validated, verified, and came up with these 6 elements. The first of which, there is no particular order, but I tend to present them in this because it makes most sense to me. The first of which is trust. I kind of that always has to come first, because that is the foundation for all relationships. No trust, no communication. We need to communicate to do better. So that's the sort of the biggie, if you like, which I guess kind of threads through all of the rest of them. Because if we've got that element of trust, then that means when we start to orientate more towards win-win and being mutually beneficial, that becomes far easier, because we'll naturally be looking for that kind of more fair split. And if times are a bit difficult, when we start to discuss it, because there's probably going to be some conflict at some stage, we can deal with it because we understand why or what we're trying to do to achieve those outcomes again. So another of the elements will be the comfort with interdependence. Yeah, I rely on you if we're in partnership together or we're working together. You rely on me because we're both bringing something to the party, and we've got to be okay with that. So in some ways, it's about giving up or knowing that an element of control in what we're doing, I'm not going to have. Now, if I'm comfortable enough with that, that's where we can really flourish. So other element then is this thing about self-disclosure and feedback, which is quite an interesting one, I think. So it's being strong enough to say to somebody that actually what you're putting into the relationship, what you're doing, the way you're doing it, isn't quite right. It's not working correctly. And that's quite a big thing to do. But equally, it's being, you're going to have to accept, if you're going to give feedback, you've got to take it. But to make it easier, if you're comfortable enough in giving information, if you're comfortable enough in sharing stuff, and sort of letting a little bit go and sort of helping people understand you better, well, it's probably, again, you think about how relationships can be far stronger with that.
Yeah.
So that's what elements are like, and that goes into so many other different things. But that's a really interesting part of well, they're all interesting, but it's a key part of when we're working together with customers.
Fred, can I just make a comment there too? That I think
please, yeah.
The thing about the interdependence and and then the disclosure and feedback is, if you don't have trust, it's going to be very unlikely that you'll get disclosure and feedback. And this is when we think the deal's going swimmingly. We've made it to some measure of a short list. We've revised our pricing and we lose. And I think, never did anyone mention that there was a problem. And it's likely because you didn't establish that trust in the beginning, where someone thought they could come to you and tell you what the issue or the challenge or the gap really was. I mean, the other things they mentioned, they might have been true, but they weren't actually the objection in the sale. Would you agree?
100%. I mean, trust is a massive, all of these are big areas. We could do an hour or so on each one of those very, very easily. But if we sort of look to break down trust, if we go back to that, one of the ways of looking at this I quite like is the trust equation, which looks at trust is made up of credibility, reliability, and intimacy, but divided by all over self-orientation. So
Mm.
you do all these things, but not for your own benefit, for somebody else. That's what the self-orientation part is. Because the higher that is, the more it's going to pull down the whole trust element. Credibility is sort of being believable, if you like. Okay, yeah, put tick there. We can do that as salespeople. Reliability, do what you say you're going to do. Okay, yeah, I can give you a load of case studies and prove that. Intimacy, how safe do you feel giving me information? That's where it would fall down. That's what you're saying. So if you think, well, yeah, I'll just sort of tell him the business KPIs, the stuff that actually you could find out anywhere. But really the fact that I'm really worried about my role and what this future might mean, I'm not sharing that with anybody. Actually, if you'd have told me that, I could have probably done something or changed the proposal or set up how we're working together to help that as well. But if you're not comfortable with it, if you haven't got that element of trust in telling me, it's all come tumbling down.